Warning, this film contains flashing lights, bad accents, and a gratuitous can commercial. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome, guys. Come on in. So, no Omar? We had a family thing. Sorry about the lights, guys. The storm's playing havoc on the power grid. The guards crossed their halberds in front of the door. I'm sorry, I must insist you surrender your weapons. Lord Cecil's orders. Fine by me. I hand over my simple wooden quarterstaff, knowing that I can use the Qui-Gon Doe style with my people if things get out of hand. I hand over my sword belt without a fuss, but say nothing of the dagger I keep inside my boot as a last resort. I rolled a 16 on sleight of hand, if you recall. An arcanist of my renown has no need of such trivial things as weapons to defend herself. I hand over my dagger and the staff of Lethiarelli. I have no weapons on me unless you count my loot and my guns. What you trying to pull here? Do you know who we are? We shouldn't have to surrender our weapons just because some overblown baron says so. Mike gets in his face menacingly. Okay, roll into 23. I'm sorry, sir, your reputation precedes you, but our orders stand. Fear not, they will be returned to you safely and unharmed upon your departure. Fine, I hand over my greatsword, but I'm going to pinch something valuable on the way in. You're shown into an opulent chamber where a well-heeled man in a velvet jerkin sips brandy nervously from a fine crystal goblet. Welcome, adventurers. Please, have a seat. Your message specified a good deal of urgency, my lord. By your leave, may we dispense with the formalities and get straight to the heart of the matter? That would be wise. You notice this normally stoic and jovial man seems distraught, almost on the verge of tears. You see, my beloved daughter Esmeralda, my only child and heiress to my substantial fortune, has been taken in the dead of night. This morning I received a ransom note from an anonymous source, though if my suspicions are correct, Lord Merryweather is behind this extortion. On the honor of the Goldforge clan, you shall have your daughter back safe. How much we getting paid? I can offer you the sum of 500 golden crowns for her safe and timely return. Don't make me laugh. How much was the ransom for? Well, if you must know, a princely sum of 1 million. We'll do it for half that. Mike looks around the place. You're clearly loaded. You can afford it. Appearances aside, the finances of my house are a bit more complex. So out of character, how rich we talking? You're no expert, but from what you've seen, every room is bedecked with expensive hardwood and gilding, as well as artistic masterpieces that must each be worth a small fortune on the open market. Look here, Cecil, you're asking us to put our lives on the line here. 50,000, final offer. I'm afraid that's impossible. I could perhaps offer you 5,000? Mike draws his greatsword and cuts his head off. You don't have your greatsword, remember? Fine, Mike punches him in the face. Natural 20. Wow. Okay. You hear a sickening crunch as your gauntlet connects with his nose, forcing his nasal bones into his brain. He falls to the floor lifeless, his blood rapidly pooling on the marble floor. What the literal hell, Mike? What? I didn't mean to off the guy. And I quote, Mike draws his greatsword and cuts his head off. That was different. Quest was more trouble than it was worth anyway. Now we can just take all his stuff. Think of all the magic items we could buy with this kind of loot. I must remind you that not only are there guards right outside the door, but the decor is pretty distinctive, not to mention bulky. It might cause problems if you try to just trade it. You still got that bag of holding, Rufus? Sure do. You thinking what I'm thinking? In all fairness, I must remind you the mansion is heavily guarded, including a contingent just on the other side of that door. So what? We can take them. So we're decided then. You split up to spend your ill-gotten gains. Mike and Griselda, about an hour later you arrive at Armister's Arms and Armor. Mike walks up to shopkeep guy. You know that great sword of the whirlwind I've been scoping out? I want to pull the trigger on it. I'm afraid there's no trigger on that particular item. I mean I want to buy it. This should be enough. Mike plops down the ruby-encrusted gold diva statuette. He looks at the statuette, then nervously back to you. I'm afraid I can't take that in trade. You drive a hard bargain. Mike offers him the diamond codpiece as well. It's Not a question of monetary value. I know precisely where this came from, and you'd do well to return it. Regardless, I won't be complicit in...
Mike runs him through. I got a 23.
Okay, you kill the shopkeeper. As he topples bleeding over the display counter, his young apprentice Nikolai emerges from the storeroom, staring in disbelief for a split second before letting out a blood-curdling scream and running for the door.
Ah, now you've done it. If the lot alerts the watch, we're done for.
I grab the crossbow off the wall and fire at his leg to slow him down. Ugh, natural 1.
You level Death Stinger at Nikolai. Just as you're losing the enchanted bolt, you slip in a pool of blood at your feet and the shot goes high, straight through his ribcage and out the other side. Despite all this, he continues clawing his way toward the door, gasping for breath to sound the alarm.
Oh, bloody hell. I run forward, grab him by the hair, and slit his throat.
Congratulations, you just murdered an unarmed shopkeep and a defenseless 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, we did. I didn't mean to.
Well, only sensible thing to do is bar the door, take what we want, and leave quietly out the back.
Talk about a win-win. Now we get everything we want and we don't have to spend a copper. High five.
Alexei and Daria, you arrive at Crowley's Arcanistry. The familiar robed gentleman bids you welcome.
I ignore him for the moment and start looking through the racks for anything worthwhile.
Do you have Detect Magic going?
Please. I always have Detect Magic going. It's a ritual. Also, I have Mage Armor up, just in case.
To speed things along, here's the list of his current inventory on display. I'll assume you ask if you're really stumped on something.
Or just Ritual Cast Identify.
You also detect a strong aura of abjuration and divination as Crowley approaches you. Ah, Alexandra, welcome back.
It's Alexandria. I turn coolly over my shoulder, regarding the man knowingly. I sense an aura of abjuration about you. Don't you trust me?
Standard precaution, my dear. He regards you in turn. You may say I've a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. There is a darkness in your aura, child. What troubles you?
That is none of your concern. Tell me, my good fellow, how much for this robe of the Archmagi?
Much as I dislike being the bearer of bad news, that particular item I will only part with if something of equal power and rarity is offered in exchange. I don't suppose you've come across...
I cast Coward Kill.
Really? If you want to incapacitate him, you could try Hold Person, Web, or even Suggestion.
He's a mage. He's probably warded against all that. He even sells stuff for it. You can't dodge death unless you've gotten in with the gods. I cast Coward Kill.
Oh, for the love of... Yeah, dead. I thought you liked this character, Jess.
I like his stuff more. I gather everything that's not crossed out and stride casually out of the shop.
And the bystanders?
They can try to take me if they dare. They're no match for my arcane might.
Alright, meanwhile, Odoron and Rufus. You've made your way to the Juggling Unicorn, the ritziest tavern in town. The fare here is extraordinary, the patrons more than a little snooty, though they show a bit of grudging admiration at Rufus's busking.
By the way, I'm tossing out treasure to the crowd as I croon the haunting strains of Sweet Home Aliveria.
Oddly enough, no one is taking any of it. Some of the patrons seem to actively move away from it. At this point, the overly polite tavern keep strides up to your table and clears his throat lightly. Gentlemen, your tab comes to 273 gold pieces so far, and I'm afraid I must ask you to settle it at this juncture.
Would you just die already?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I said I wish you'd just die already. That's vicious mockery, by the way, so we'll save or take 11 points of psychic damage.
No sooner have you spoken the words than the hapless proprietor's eyes roll back in his head and he slumps to the floor, bleeding from the nose. Screams erupt around the establishment, and many patrons flee or yell for the city watch.
Was that really a wise idea, Rufus?
Oh. But it was fun, and now we don't have to worry about the tab.
Mere moments later, two well-armed guards burst through the doors, weapons drawn.
What? But they were only just called for. It always takes at least a half hour to find law enforcement in this city.
Ah, but you're in the rich quarter now. What's the meaning of all this hubbub? Yells the lead guard.
I hope you're satisfied, Rufus. I flip swiftly forward and deliver a devastating roundhouse kick. That's 8 damage to the first and 7 to the second, assuming a 15 hits.
It hits, yes. You land a resounding blow on each of them, but they're both still standing.
I got this. I jump over the table and breathe fire on you. That's 6 damage.
Pure, utter chaos. People are practically trampling each other trying to flee the scene as the guards are literally roasted alive, falling in smoking heaps on the ground.
Good times! I vault over the bar and help us each to another round of their finest mead.
At this point, Griselda, Mike, and Alexia and Doria join you at the juggling unicorn, stepping over the bleeding corpses as they make their way inside.
Hi, Salant, I killed so many people today. What about you guys?
Nothing intentional. I mean, unless you count the orphanage incident, and those brats had it coming. Plus, their shoes were just my size. Nice robe, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Its former owner was just dying for me to have it.
At this point, you're approached by an unfamiliar man in a coarse brown robe. You notice the heraldry of Honoria woven into his vestments. "Friends," he says gravely, "I'm afraid you find yourself under a fell curse."
Curse? I take a sip of mead. What are you talking about?
You've recently come into possession of great wealth, am I right? Wealth that was, shall we say, not precisely yours for the taking?
So what if we have?
I regret to inform you that that which you have taken is the cursed treasure of Vandevart. While under its influence, you will feel the overwhelming compulsion to kill, steal, and in general act like lawless, blood-crazed lunatics.
Yeah, it was kind of sad to see Crowley go. Fun as it was.
Let's say for a moment there's a grain of truth to your words. What's to be done to lift this curse?
To lift the curse of Vandevart, you must relinquish the wealth that has taken hold over you. Rid yourselves of your ill-gotten gains and everything you've gained by your brigandry. He looks pointedly at your new magic items, and the curse will be lifted. But the innocent souls you have taken from this mortal plane must be on your conscience, I fear.
So, what do we think, guys? I appreciate your concern, good sir, but I, for one, should like to see where this course takes us.
It has been quite profitable. Hear, hear! Mike chops his head off.
Time will tell. This primal yell will never fade away. It's in my head. It's in my head. It's in my world. And it's back again.
So, did you hear Backwater J has merch now?
Merch? What does he need that for? It's clearly fan service, so all those several subscribers can show their appreciation to the world and support this sort of content financially.
As if liking, commenting, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell wasn't enough.
Well, I, for one, won't support this blatant commercialism. Anyway, you can follow the link below to Intrepid Books to find Backwater J merchandise and all sorts of other cool designs.
Omar says stay tuned for an important message from Can.
He took a personality test. Fortunately, it came back negative.
Long-faced and high-browed.
Probably from Earth.
Intellective.
I'm not like other GMs.